Recording in progress.
Good evening. I'd like to call this regular Board of Finance meeting for Monday, October 21st, 2024 to order. First item on the agenda, public forum. Anybody wishing to address the Board of Finance in public forum? Seeing none. Item number 2, approve minutes of our regular meeting minutes of September 16th, 2024. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Any comments or corrections? I did have a couple. First page under Board of Ed officials, business manager Linda, we should have her last name there, Trudeau. On the first page. Board of Ed officials. Yeah, well, from us, definitely. And on page 3, fourth paragraph down, there was discussion about the capital lease and should be Johnson Controls. And that was all I saw. Anybody else?
I had one on page 2. This is just a typo. Right after the second paragraph, I think there should be a period rather than a comma after your Mr. Ailes. And then on page 5, the paragraph, the second paragraph under new business, the one that starts with Mr. Hoy, the last sentence starting with some, or the second to last line starting some adjustments because the job descriptions have changed and anticipated hours they work have changed as well. That was it.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have one, and I just locked myself out of the board pack, I can't point to the paragraph, but at the end of the minutes, I was talking about the pension results. And there's a line in there that says about Board of Ed, and it isn't that way because the members can take lump sums. That should be modified, if I wasn't clear, to say that the non-certified members can take lump sums.
Is that under pension committee?
Yeah, it is, and I just literally just knocked myself out of the board pack, I can't get back in. I can't tell you where it is.
The reason the Board of Ed is
Did not.
lower is that they're the only group allowed to take lump sums.
Not.
I think Bob is saying,
Yeah, go ahead, keep going.
Non-certified members.
non-certified members can take lump sum.
That's correct, thank you.
So replace that, replace group, I think.
Yeah.
Or is it they are, that non-certified
Members.
Members.
Yeah.
And the only group allowed to take lump
are
sums.
the only group allowed, yeah, okay. Yep,
Thank you.
makes sense. Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions?
Yeah, one.
Ms. Wallace, and was there just one? Okay. Actually, oh, 1, 2, 3. Why am I counting 5? Who was missing?
I was missing.
You, but there was someone. Oh, Megan.
She abstained also.
Oh, I'm sorry, Megan. I looked up and you must have already, you must have already abstained. Okay, thank you. Item number 3, correspondence. For standing building committee minutes, I understand that we're not ready in time for us to receive those, but we will get 2 sets, most likely next month, assuming timing is okay. Did anybody have anything standing building committee? I know Mr. DeMeo is not on, but we'll cover whatever we need to next month. Number 2, pension committee minutes. Anything on the minutes for pension?
I had one question. It looked like
Jonathan.
a position got eliminated with the town. I was wondering which position that was. Yeah. You were talking about the counts for defined and contribution, defined benefit.
That fluctuates every time we have a retirement and a new hire. So if we have a retirement where someone is on the defined benefit plan and they retire, or leave.
Yeah, one of them was a retirement, but it also said one position was being eliminated. So I was kind of curious if you had eliminated a position in town.
Which one? Let me see if I can find a minute.
Yeah,
It was item 6,
it's on the it's item 6 at the bottom.
first page.
You drop, yeah.
I'm potentially going to suggest that that might be an error in the minutes.
Yeah, I don't know if any position
We
has
have
been
not,
eliminated.
we have not eliminated a position recently, so
Okay.
we'll find out though, John.
Yeah, I apologize, I
Sure.
wasn't at that particular meeting, so,
All right.
yeah. But I don't know if a position has been eliminated. But what the First Selectman says is correct. Regardless, eliminated, retired, terminated, leave, as people leave, the new person would come on under the defined contribution plan.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on pension committee minutes or the investment report? Otherwise, I'll move on to item number 3, OPEB minutes. Or the report, investment report. Okay. If nothing further on correspondence, we'll move on to item number 4, review and accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education for September 2024. Linda Trudeau, and financial report from Board of Education member Dick Hirsch. Good evening.
Good evening.
Floor is yours.
So the report is fairly straightforward this month. It's expenditures for September 2024 was $5,310,077.09. The budget was expended up 22.81% versus 22.7% of last year, so it's pretty much the same. The rest are fairly self-explanatory on that page. Purchase services, we show that expenditures were lower, and that is largely because there have been some projects that were budgeted that have been delayed. And on tuition, the percentage of the budget expended is higher. That's because we've been paying out sooner than we did last year on some of those things. The rest of it is pretty straightforward. Some items on the warrant that you may be, that at least I found highlighted were on page 1 of the warrants. A number of expenditures near the top for the Baldwin. That's all part of a much larger ongoing project. It's not new. And on page 4, near the bottom, you'll see $250,000 for technology equipment. That's purchased through our capital lease program, and that we then get that reimbursed. So it's page 6. You see a bunch of things there on Eversource, which goes over to page 7. A lot of Eversource stuff. And we actually have hired an outside firm to actually look at these costs. And if they find that we've been charged more than we should have been, they get the money back and they get half of what they find. And that's the first time we've done that, right?
Great.
Page 10. Page 10. You see a $22,000 expenditure in the top third of the page for Lexia renewal, and that's software for special education cost. Page 11, you see a number of labels on the right-hand side. Settlement, evaluation. Those are the settlement costs with parents on special education. And then page 15, you see $135,000 near toward the bottom for three SROs. Those are the three resource officers, and because they all got hired in place on time, that cost comes up full compared to previous years, which we always had one vacancy. The medical, $872,652. That's actually lower than we've been paying. That got lowered as a function of contractual costs. So those are the ones that I found that stick out. You may have further questions about individual items.
Since everyone's on page 15, probably anyway, I did have one on 16, on the warrants. The $13,805 for playground mulch, is that for one playground, or is that for multiple playgrounds?
No, it's for multiple. It's for-
Replenishing mulch on multiple playgrounds?
Yes.
Okay. Other than that, thank you for going through the warrants. Probably answered a few questions. Answered one of mine, so thank you.
I had one on page 12 of the warrants. About halfway through the page, there's a payment to Partners for Educational Leadership for executive coaching. Is that for superintendent's office, or is that for the principals?
It's
or who's
for
that
it's a principal for us.
One principal?
I believe it's one principal.
Okay.
Yes, it's coaching for one principal.
Okay.
I got some questions about the budget line items. Sorry to just-
Yeah, I just figured we were
Going back
on
there.
warrants, so anybody else have anything on warrants? Otherwise, we'll just go, kind of go backwards. We could always go back, always go back to warrants. So ahead, sorry, go ahead, Bob.
About the arrangement with Johnson Controls where if we don't hit the savings that they forecasted, we get a refund. Does that last for the entire length of the contract, or is it for a year? So it's 5 years.
Are you referring to
expiring. Do you know how long that goes for?
the energy performance contract agreement? Is that
Yeah.
And Mary Jane may know, is that an ongoing agreement, or is that just for that one initial year?
We did it for the first 2 or 3 years that we, because we couldn't get the reports the first year because they hadn't finished all the activities. And we engaged that company for 2 years to monitor it as it went forward. We could probably engage somebody to take another look at it or work directly with Johnson Controls to provide that kind of analysis. But we were pretty satisfied after the 2-year engagement that we were receiving the benefits that we anticipated, which meant we were realizing energy savings in excess of what it was costing us on the lease payments for the capital that was invested in the project. So we can certainly go back and take a look at. The name of the company that we hired escapes me at this point. But we could certainly have them do another analysis if we think it's warranted.
Of course, it's a cost.
What's that? Yeah, there'd be a cost associated with that, obviously, but.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember that. I remember we did this once, I couldn't, but a while ago, I couldn't remember how. Yeah. Thanks, Bob.
And actually, that, all that discussion just now, the only question I had on the financial report, the percentages, was the electricity, which was running higher than it was last year. I think it was when I looked at it, I think it was 33%.
Thanks a lot. That was one of mine.
Versus 33 versus 23. So the fact that you addressed it, and we have a consultant looking at the expenditures, it's coincidental that I saw that
Right.
and you're addressing it, so.
Is the overage driving the,
So there's the encumbrance in there, which you don't normally see in electricity, for the $49,000.
Right.
And I'm not going to get it right as to what it is. I can get you a better description as to what is encumbered. So it's a project related to the energy, the electricity, I believe at the high school. So that is an unusual cost that's in there. That $50,000 is not usually encumbered. We don't usually encumber anything for electricity. So that's what's driving a good portion of that variance in the percentages. And I can get you a better description on what that
Okay.
I had it with me and I think I took it out, and I don't remember.
Mr. Chairman, I would dare say that if we were doing an analysis on the most recent energy costs and prices, we would probably be a little bit surprised, given what we've all seen in our increases based on decisions that were made by the legislature over the last 5 or 7 years, whatever it was. But what you may or may not recall is the indexing that was used in the original energy performance contract was a 3% indexing per year. That got blown out of the water in the last 6 months or 8 months, whatever it is. So the indexing is something that we all agreed to when we put the deal together.
I was
Yeah.
curious, the higher cost of electricity was actually driving this investigation. Were you looking at the expenses and saying, wow, we're at 33%, usually we're at 20?
So there's actually two different investigations going on. One is to look at some of the schools that seem to be running a little bit higher, to see if we can find any issue, any reason why those bills are running higher.
On usage.
On usage.
Right,
And then
okay.
there's also this other company that's just looking at how we are being billed and looking for errors in bills. And then that's the company that if they find anything and can get the money back, we split 50-50, whatever savings they find.
And that's independent of the increased cost.
Yes. Now, we are locked in for our electric supplier. So that rate is set. It's just the other costs that we have no control over.
And do we pay if they find nothing?
Nope.
It's contingent.
It's contingent on if they find something. Now, they have
Found
told us that they have found some things, so they're working on trying to get those funds back, and if they do, then we split it. If they're not successful in getting it back, then it doesn't cost us anything.
I don't know if I should know the answer to this question, but do municipalities, school districts also pay the public
service.
usage, public service fee?
It's,
Everybody,
It's
it's across
not-
the board, right?
Including the people who were forgiven during the time that they had their payments forgiven.
So
So
they gotta
everybody,
make up
everybody
for it.
who is now back on is
They gotta make up
also
for it.
paying a portion of the
Okay.
public benefits.
I wasn't sure, I thought that, but I wasn't sure, I just wanted to be sure,
Yeah, they're-
you know, for the public that, listen, what's going on here is, we're all experiencing it, so that's why the increased cost. But the usage, I mean, that's, to me, that's more important. If the usage is up, why is it up?
right.
Okay.
Can I also ask you about the special services line? It's, doesn't seem to be, well, the difference between last year and this year is what caught my eye, but maybe last year was a little low at this time. I think I'm looking at the right line. It says 4.4% expended last year, but 11.45 expended this year.
Right.
It's kind of a big item, so, big line item, so it's a
Yeah.
little bit of money.
What I've looked at so far, it all just seems to be a matter of timing of payments. It does not seem to be anything too out of the ordinary.
Okay.
If you remember, this line in previous years has been over budget. We did increase the budget on it, especially now that we have more in-house students requiring needs that have services that we have to provide through contracted services. But I don't see anything unusual in there right now from what I've been looking at for that account.
Okay. This is almost all special ed services, right?
It's all special ed
Oh,
services.
okay.
That's all it is. It's everything from nursing services, behaviorists, evaluations, all kinds of different services that are for the special needs students.
Okay. Maybe it'll just kind of even out.
Anything else on the financial report?
I just have, along this, not exactly along the same lines, but I noted in the minutes from the meeting and paraprofessionals, they're slightly lower as a percentage this year than where they were last year at this time. But also that it seems that there's a number of paraprofessional positions that haven't been filled yet. So do you expect that when those positions get filled, that it won't be running less than where it was last
Yeah,
year?
it's only slightly less than last year.
Right.
Yeah, we do anticipate if we can get fully staffed and retain the staff.
Right.
Because we've had a number of them start and then leave very quickly.
Wow. Like, we're a little over a month and a half into the year, and folks who've started have already left?
Yes,
Wow. Okay.
yes.
It's hard.
No, I don't doubt it.
Yeah,
I just,
mean, there, in fairness to some of them, there were at least one that I know of that was offered a teaching position. So good for them, they got the teaching position that they wanted, that's
Right.
great. Others, I don't know what the reasons are, but we've had some that have already left.
okay.
I guess one more on the line items. Equipment instructional, I think you already mentioned that there was a $250,000 lease payment and that we'll get that back. But I noticed that the available balance is negative $546,000 or so.
Right.
Is there another payment that we make that we get back?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there's, we purchased probably all of the technology equipment, which would be over $500,000 already this year. And what we have to do is we have to pay for the invoice, get the invoice, pay it, wait for the check to clear, and then we can send it along to the leasing company, and we'll get reimbursed for those funds. Our lease was just bought out by a different company, so they've changed the procedures just slightly on
Okay.
requesting the reimbursement. So that reimbursement request will be going out before the end of this month.
Okay.
So hopefully sometime in
This is
November.
just in play for the lease then?
Yep,
Okay.
hopefully in November
That's
we'll
what I
get that
thought,
money
but
back.
wanted to ask.
And then there will still be the truck piece will be hanging out there because it's going to take forever to the truck to actually come in.
Can you entertain a question about the minutes?
Sure.
I
Can.
I've just got just a broad question, but I think it said in the minutes you hired 27 teachers. Is that,
Oh, I don't
Is that what I
remember
saw?
I don't remember the number.
Okay.
I may have.
I thought,
Sounds
wow.
about, I mean.
That's-
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right. It
Yeah.
was somewhere in the 20s, I think.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Okay, that's astonishing. So I think it said all the teachers' positions are filled for the moment?
It does.
Yes,
I think we started the year all filled.
yes.
Good place to be.
And
Wow.
that-
Yes, yeah,
Starting
no.
off.
And that
it's-
is
it's-
astonishing.
A lot of hiring.
27 new certified?
Well, given that most
those-
districts are,
But those are filling positions
most
that
districts are not filled. I mean, we're unusual in the state,
Still a shortfall in substitutions and paraprofessionals.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, anything else on the financial report?
I had one other question. There was a really large voided check. It's like $271,000.
Yes, so that was payment for one of the capital leases.
Okay.
We mail it to them, they didn't get
Didn't get
it. We put a stop payment on it and reissued it. Actually, we had it done as an ACH payment, so they withdrawn the funds from our account.
Okay.
So we had to void the check that they never received.
Okay. It was just a really
Yeah,
large
it's,
amount. I figured it had to be something like that.
it was, yeah,
Caught again.
Most people would recognize a check that size. that-
yeah, yeah. I mean, we don't
Yeah.
know it.
Yeah.
It mailed to the address that we've mailed other
Oh.
checks to, and it, some reason didn't get
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
We actually had one check, it was a much smaller check, somehow got returned to us about 11 months after we mailed it out. Mangled up and looked like it had been run over and,
Had
Through a
dog,
shredder
had
and-
dog tooth marks.
yeah,
The night, it's
But it
with the
found its way
19
home.
wedding invitations that didn't get,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
I was going to move on to the documents
Sure.
that you sent today.
Mhm.
Were you planning on going to those?
Yes,
Was that what you were trying to say?
That's what I was
about
gonna
them? Okay.
do you,
So
would
you
you
would
like printed copies of the enrollment reports? Would that make it easier for you, if you don't have them?
I would if you
I
had
mean, I
no
printed.
time to print them.
Yeah, sometimes we have a chance, sometimes we don't.
Yes, I brought extras just
I
in
luckily
case,
had a chance
in
to
some
print
case
them,
somebody.
so. Yeah, I've got everything printed. Anybody else need it
I
printed?
the enrollments.
Enrollment? Correct. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I brought extras just in case for that one, because I knew that one's a tougher one to print out and maneuver.
In no particular order, at least I don't think there's any particular order. Tuition report was provided
Okay,
early in the year, so
Great.
it's looking like great news right now, but
Right, so what I did do this time, only because it's a little bit more substantial, is we have on the horizon 3 potential outplacements. So I broke it out on the report so that you can see it, instead of
Okay.
just including it in with the private outplacements. So as we work on these settlements, finalize these outplacements, these numbers will change and get moved into the private outplacement line. But right now, we had budgeted for 35 private outplacements, we only have 24. And we had 4 public outplacement budgeted, and we only have 3. So right now, we're looking at, even with these potential outplacements, being under budget $400,000 right now.
right.
It is very early,
That's why I
like you
said
said. It is very early, so it will definitely change. But right
And-
now,
and
it's,
And you said that's even with the potential outplacements? That's where,
Right.
that's currently where we stand?
Right,
Which means,
because-
doesn't mean anything if another 2 or 3 get added somewhere during the year?
right.
Okay.
So, having 11
Fewer.
Yeah.
fewer than we had
Yeah.
originally budgeted for is definitely helping us.
Okay.
But as we noted a few minutes ago, there's an uptick in the special services. So it's
Right.
not, it's
Doesn't
not.
take much.
Right.
Right. So any savings here is
Offset to a
offset
certain
by
degree.
those, yes,
on the
to
other
those
side.
things.
Okay. Anything else on tuition? Otherwise, we can, you want to address the enrollment
Sure.
report? This is very helpful. It looks like the October 1st numbers are in. Total of 3,094
Down
students.
50, down 50 from last year.
Well, 3,054
For-
in district,
district,
and then another
29.
4, well, that's the page, I think that's the page
Is
number.
it 29?
No, that's
Another
not, no,
29.
29 too. I'm just looking at
Well, there's-
3,094 at the bottom.
There's 29 special ed outplacements, 8 magnet ones and 3 BOAG.
Got it.
So it's,
So almost 3,100.
right, so it's down 47 from last year, which across 13 grades in all the different schools is not anything significant.
Right.
What's also included in this packet is a breakout by the elementary sections. This is always a topic of discussion on the class sizes for the elementary schools. All of the class sizes are well within the guidelines of the Board of Ed policy.
Except for one that's,
Yeah, I thought there
Running
was
higher.
one in the notes, right?
It's,
Which
but
is-
it's still acceptable.
yeah, it's still
Yeah.
within the
It's still
Board
within
of
the
Education. yeah.
guidelines, but it is higher.
Right.
But that's the problem with neighborhood schools. You can't.
You're gonna have
split it-
bubbles, you're gonna have
you can't-
bubbles.
You can't split it out.
Right, right.
And then we also included a history of enrollment. And then there's a chart that shows a comparison to from our actual enrollments to what the 2 demographic studies were. 'Cause this is the last year of the HCP demographic study that was done, and a couple years in on the one that was done by SLAM. You can see we're way off from the one that was done by HCP. That's 538 students,
Right.
and we're higher than what they projected. But they had said at the time that they weren't sure what the change in the new high school and the full-day kindergarten was going to do, and they never got a chance to redo it.
Which is why we had another.
Yeah, which we had another
Demographic
company do
study
it,
done.
because, so we're very close to, we're only a few, 20 students off, 22 students off from what the SLAM study says. So, and we're down 22, which is not huge. And then there's the 2 studies are included for your reference as well.
So is there another demographic study that's going to be done, or?
No,
Since
this one
because
was
the-
done
the
only 2 years-
The
it was
SLAM one
recently.
is 10 years,
Okay.
so that, we have that one
Okay.
to go by.
Oh, I see, yeah, it's just started right there.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have that one to go through yet.
What's
And if-
inter- Go ahead.
I mean, this one has been very accurate, so there's no reason to look at another one. If we thought that this wasn't an accurate depiction of what was going on, we would consider doing another
Right.
one. But at this point, we don't see any need to.
I printed mine off in black and white, that's why I'm having a hard time. Thanks.
Sure.
And then just, I know that I'm familiar with these enrollment projections as part of my day job. I look at them quite often. But I see that they took the medium projection, or you put this in here, which is between the low and the high.
Right.
So it's kind of an average. And just for the public, I mean, you could see this online. If you wanted to go to the demographic study, I'm sure it's posted online,
They're
right?
online, yes. Both of them.
There is I mean, I would say for this particular region, I don't know if I would say the state of Connecticut. Obviously, there's quite a few, district reference groups to compare to and geographic locations, but this is projecting to be pretty potent in terms of an increase over the, I guess, next 8 years. I mean, it goes from, and again, it's just projection, but pre-K-12 goes from where we are, 3,076 is the projection, all the way up to almost 3,300. That is fairly consistent with a lot of our DRGs and our areas. I know Branford is kind of heading in the same direction.
Right.
Everyone's kind of starting to trend up now. Again, it's projection, so. But it appears to be, for the last 2 to 3 years with these studies, it seems to be actualizing itself, realizing itself. So, anything else on, did anybody else have anything on enrollment? The third item was the budget timeline. So,
Just for your reference.
yeah, I already started putting these dates in the calendar, make sure that nothing gets in the way of them.
And we have our
And we have our meetings.
joint meeting.
Yeah,
first joint
December and
meeting in
January,
December,
so.
in January.
Right. Okay.
We did hold a public forum
The other-
last week.
Oh, good. That was going to be my very last item, that there was a,
Yes.
Public
there was
forum
public forum.
last week, yeah.
There was some thank yous to the board for the support that they've provided to the hockey team. There have been some people commenting on the weight room and how the equipment needs to be updated, and talk about supervision so that the teams could use it after school. Because sometimes the coaches aren't always available to do it after school, so some supervision in there so the kids could use it after school. There was some talk about an Italian teacher. We have one, but they're looking to expand it. There was some other talk of some other academic things for testing and behavioral supervision, increasing for a financial literacy course that is a state mandate. Right now, it's offered only a couple periods, and hasn't been able to fit in every student's schedule, but it's a state
That's at the
mandate.
high school, though.
Yes, high school, state mandated course at the high school, required for graduation. So there was some discussion over that.
The problem being that every student has to take it, and some students are worried that the only way they're going to be able to fit it in is to not be able to take an advanced placement course because of scheduling. So there's that issue of,
Only so many hours in the day.
Yes.
and if somebody came up to the mic near the end of the meeting making a fairly articulate case, much less strong, about the need for changing the hours of the school day so that students started later, and referencing other districts in the state that have done that. So,
About how many people turned out for the public?
about 20,
20?
25.
Okay.
Yeah, there were a couple there that didn't speak, but they were
In support of
in
something?
support of, yes.
Oh. Okay. Anything else for the Board of Education this evening? Anybody virtually? Okay. I will then entertain a motion to accept the report of expenditures in September 2024 for the Board of Education in the amount of $5,310,077.09.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Any recusals? Unanimous. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 5, review and approve the report of expenditures for town government for September 2024.
Good evening.
Mary Jane.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. So, we will begin with revenue, I'm sure.
Sure, before I start though, I'd
Sure.
just like to remind you, if you don't know already, that our capital budget presentations will be made on Monday, November 18th. We believe starting at about 10 a.m. It is a morning of a regular selectmen's meeting, Board of Selectmen's meeting.
Thank you.
So immediately following their regular agenda, we will be starting our capital budget presentations. So Monday, November 18th.
Thank you. That was on my list of questions. It has been answered.
There you go.
Excellent. Thank you.
Always enjoy answering questions before.
Ahead of time, right?
Before the rest. Okay, so we will start with revenue. At the end of September, we are 25% through our year. We are just shy of 53% collected, which is approximately where we were last year. I'd just like to note a couple of our departments that are have statistics percent collection different from the prior year. The town clerk's office, our budget went down, bless you, for fiscal year '25, which makes the percent collected different from the prior year, but in line with where we expect to be this year. On the flip side, finance their budget has gone up, bringing that budget again in line of where it should be at this point. Public Works, also the budget went slightly up, which is why their percent collected is slightly less than last year, and the Health Department went down, bringing their percentage different from the prior year. So when you look from one year to the other, it's mainly because of the amount that we have budgeted, not due to the amount that has been collected. Just wanted to note that the golf course has already brought over 50% of their revenue in as of the end of September, on track to having another good year. Other than that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
They had a special event there not too long
They
ago.
did. They had a golf event, and based on the research I've done, it looks like they've made about $4,000 on that event. So.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Good for them.
I was going to ask you about the health department, but you already explained it.
There you go.
Yep.
Yes, it's.
That looked a little strange, but I
Yeah,
get it.
as soon as we change the budget from year to year, it does affect those percentages.
Okay. Anything else on revenue? Okay. Expenses.
So on the expense side, you'll see that we are approximately where we were last year at this time as well. As I've noted in prior years, we do have a number of departments where the expenditures do go out at the beginning of the year, which makes their percent expended through September higher than where you might expect them to be. An example of those are information systems, insurance, human services, employee benefits, and our debt our debt payments. I will note that our debt retirement appears to be overdrawn at this time. Just remind you that we do budget to make that hold from the premium credits that we receive from when we bond. All of our debt payments will be finalized after January, so at that point I will come back to you to make that line item whole. Otherwise, we should be all set in those line line
Can I
items.
just clarify, so you
Yep.
expect premium credits somewhere along the line of our shortfall there?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
You had mentioned some of the percentages that track higher. I was actually surprised to see human services was at almost 80%, not almost 100%. Because usually those
Well-
get, is that an issue with just the timing, or is it
It's just a
trying
matter
to
of-
find the right,
It's just a matter of us receiving
the
requests
request?
for
Okay.
their
'Cause I know it's
funds.
budgeted, and usually, it usually goes right out, like, it's
We
pretty
usually
quick.
have a couple of
Because-
people
because
that are-
they're-
yeah.
Well, they're nonprofits and they're organizations that are looking for that funding to support them, so.
Yes.
I know that's usually, 90 to 100% within a couple months,
Yeah,
so.
we do start about now to
Okay.
contact them
Okay,
to be sure
if
that
they
they're
haven't.
receiving their benefits,
Okay.
yes.
Other than that, yeah, everything looked pretty much according to history, so. Anything else? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to point out, since we bring it up when we notice something out of line, I just want to point out the fire department and the police department, their numbers for replacement salaries and overtimes are pretty much in line with the budget. A little slight variance, but not
So far, so good.
exactly. No, I just want to, since we wrap them on the knuckles when we see it the other way, let's just make sure. I just want to compliment them while
No, it's a good,
they're off to a
We'll
good
take the
it's a
start.
good
compliment.
observation.
Thank you very
It's a good
much.
observation, yeah, absolutely. Anything else on expenses? Otherwise, we will move on to the warrants, special fund first. Ending on special fund warrants. I did not see anything that I had a question on. How we doing virtually? I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to look up. It's assuming you can hear us. Okay, good. Getting nods. Good, getting nods, okay.
Yeah, Mr. Graziano is doing differently, he's working, thank you.
Excellent. Well done, Michael. We're done. Anything else on any of the warrants? There was one, what was it, on weekly? Yeah, there was one that confused me at first, and it was the very first one on weekly. It was the New England Road renovations. And I was thinking that was, wouldn't that be special, wouldn't that be, special fund, but that's coming out of capital,
Correct.
which confused me. I don't know if anybody else saw it and was like, wow, that's, for a weekly warrant, that's a pretty big amount, and it's usually something like that would be looked at as a bonded capital project or something, a
Correct.
special
There-
fund.
And there are bonded funds for
But
that.
that's
we
coming right out of
also-
capital.
We also budgeted some use of committed funds from
Right,
fund
so
balance,
that's
which
where
we'll be
that's coming
talking
from.
about in a little bit. So these were funding
Okay.
that came from there,
Yeah.
from committed funds. Mhm.
Usually the first ones you see are like Kerma and Water Company for the hydrants, but that one caught the attention, and then I
Yes.
realized what it was, so, okay. Anything else on warrants? We have capital fund reports this month. Anything you want to report on the capital funds? or-
Just that I had reported last month that we had one that was at 0 and we were going to
Took
be
it off?
taking out, so that has been taken out of the report.
Okay,
As always, looking to
yeah,
use those funds as quickly as possible.
okay.
I have a bizarre question.
All right.
I was up at the East River Preserve yesterday, and it occurred to me that it was 20 years ago that we bought it. And I'm wondering, do we own it now, or are we still paying on it? Does-
I'd have to check on that. 20 years, is
I
that something
figured
we bought
sometime-
through bonding?
Yeah,
So
You would think. Should
I
be
would
paid
think
for.
after
well,
20
unless it
years,
was
we
rolled
probably
into other
could.
Unless it was rolled in, right.
bonding,
Okay,
and we
the
did it
gospel.
longer, but,
Yeah, East River Preserve, or AKA the Goss Property, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that is a good question.
I can't believe
I
it's
would
been
think if we
20 years.
bonded the full amount at the time of the purchase, that within the 20 years, we've
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
paid that off. But I can double check that for you.
Yeah, because that would be awesome if,
I don't know that we own it outright, you know?
I will double check that for you. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Okay, if nothing on capital reports, then, or capital projects, then we'll go to medical. Medical, so, I was just, what we all saw, the medical was really high last month, and then we see a dip. Now, my only question on that is is that the full month, or is there something else coming
No,
after?
that is the full month.
Okay.
For October, you'll see that trends favorably to where we were last year. July and August had some carryovers from the prior year
Okay.
that we were covering, which is why those numbers are a bit higher. I just received today the catastrophic claim, so I'm apologize for not having those numbers updated on this report. We typically, with the new reporting system, the timing of that information doesn't mesh well with me trying to get the information to all of you, but we'll have that certainly for next month. Covered members through August at least. We are up 1 from July on total claims over 75,000, and also up 1 covered over 150,000. We're at 8% at this point. I'll also note, I had mentioned in a prior report that we were waiting for credits owed to us back from our July payment on stop loss, which is why we have no payments in August and September. I have received that information in October, so when I report to you next month, we will be up to date
Okay.
on payments for stop loss.
Okay.
Other than that, everything else seems to be in line at this point.
And just to indicate the fluctuation of this, I think last month we were, just because of the way it trended, we were projecting a deficit, and then it reversed because of the month, so. Okay. Anything else on medical? On screen, anything else at all for the town? Otherwise, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the report of expenditures in September 2024 for town government in the amount of $3,235,878.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions, recusals? Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, discuss and take possible action on end-of-the-year transfers to close out fiscal year 2023-2024. We have 3 documents. Just to recap, we have a memorandum that came from Mary Jane Malvasi, our finance director, 2 members of the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, dated the 16th of October regarding transfers from unassigned fund balance. I will hold there just to make sure I recap the other information that we have here. We have also the fiscal year 24 fund balances to review as part of the process, and then we will have other fund transfers that will be discussed. Just the way I was looking at doing this is that, Mary Jane, obviously I'm going to hand the floor over to you in a second, but I think on the fund balance transfers, the first item is the Board of Selectmen, what were their actions on the fund balance transfers this morning? Was it this morning?
This morning they were approved.
They were all approved, okay? Just want to make sure that was on record.
They were approved, 4 in favor, 1 abstention.
Okay.
Sue Renner asked for some detail.
Okay.
Relative to the anticipated uses of the funds.
Okay.
Which has been provided to her. Had she had that this morning, she would most likely have voted in favor of it. So,
Okay.
but she said that based on what she understands, she doesn't anticipate any problems, but she had just asked this morning for that information. Had she asked,
Okay.
last week, she would have had it, so.
Okay. The other item that I was wondering about, and again, there's 2 sets of items here we're going to be approving. One is the transfers from unassigned fund balance. The other is going to be the transfers from other fund transfer, committed fund balance, and also undesignated fund balance. Did the Board of Selectmen also approve all of them as one one motion, or were they separated?
Two separate motions.
Well,
By the way, let me just,
we took them one at a time.
the unassigned fund
But we
balances.
didn't go through each line item and say, we're approving this one, this one, this one. We did both of the balance transfers as a collection on each one of the documents that you're looking at. We did not go individually into each transfer.
Okay.
There were two motions, one for the
One for the-
undesignated fund transfers,
one for the
item
un-
one, and then
Okay.
a second.
Okay. So to be able to, I think some of the members of the Board of Finance, including myself, will probably want descriptions of some of the items that are in here. Some of them are
That's what
obvious.
I'm here for.
We know what they are. But why don't we just, again, for the public, just so the public knows, and I'll just, for the memo, there's an unaudited estimated surplus of $2.5 million, and in order to keep our unassigned fund balance at the same level as the prior fiscal year, we need to keep at least $537,000 of the surplus in the unassigned fund balance. This leaves up to $2 million available to committed to future projects, and the recommendation is that we transfer $1.7 million at this time. There are 6 fund balances, committed fund balances, that we're looking at transferring funds from unassigned fund balance. So we should probably, or I'd like to go through each one of these, and again, we have the report that indicates what the fund balances are now, what they will be pending, and what the, or pending or proposed, and then what the end balance will be after any motions this evening. I
Mr.
did.
Chairman.
Yes.
Before you go through that level of detail on this particular transfer, on behalf of Benny Guilford taxpayers, I'd like to propose a motion that we refund $2 million to the Guilford taxpayers. I'd like to just put that in the form of a motion, if anybody would second.
Okay. So that's, here, a motion on the table. Do I hear a second? Hearing no second, motion on the floor fails. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
for the
Chairman.
motion. I did want to note regarding the unassigned fund balance, and Mary Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think so, just I did simple math, that the unassigned fund balance, if we do not move forward with any transfers this evening, looks to be 14.4%.
Exactly right, correct.
Should we make the transfers into these committed funds that we'll talk about, we'll be at about 12.7%.
A little higher than that.
Okay.
About 13.
Okay. That, and again, it's taking the math that I saw here. That being said, that falls right in the 10 to 15% policy that we have. So that 12.5, 13 is right in the middle. I do think that 14.4% is trending fairly high on unassigned fund balance. Of course, we've heard before that a lot of rating agencies will go 15 to 20%.
Correct.
But I personally am comfortable with that, meeting that policy midline.
If we didn't have funds committed for specific purposes, then we, for sure,
Right.
would want to be as high as 20%.
Right. So, that being said, regarding the memo, there's the 6 fund balance, committed fund balances. So there, go ahead.
So I'd just like to start out by saying, as the selectmen went through with their capital budgeting this year, there were items in the capital budget that they chose to set aside funds for committed purposes, so we will talk about those. So the first item is technology, requesting $300,000. We had some items specifically in our capital budget, the assessor camera conversion, the town hall south, and human resources filing scanning, and the change over to Office 365 for all of town government. We've chosen to take out of the capital budget and put into committed funds. That's the first part. The next item is facility projects. We are let's see if I got the right line item. We have items on there, the ongoing work at 52 Church Street, right next door, the science wing over at 595 New England, and work at 50 Driveway. The police building, we're working on putting a proposal together for that, and we will eventually have the Lathrop House. So we have put some funding aside for those potential items. The next is reval. Our next reval will be for Grand List year 2026. We expect that to be about $527,000. You'll see I'm not putting all of that away this year, anticipating possibly the next couple of years also having some surplus, but we are working towards that $527,000 budget goal. Sidewalks, we always have sidewalk work to do. I'm just trying to find in my notes here. We do have some sidewalk projects that we are currently working on. Boston Street we've just completed. We have some Route 77 and on State Street, some sidewalks that we are still working on. Normally, so I'm asking for $400,000 for future debt. This is the first time you'll see a request from me for this particular line item. It's where we put all of our premium credits into future debt. So as I stated, we use towards that. But you will see as you come to our capital project presentations that we are anticipating a $30 million project, putting the new public safety facility together in its new location in anticipation. Public Works, I'm sorry, I said the same wrong thing. Public Works facility, new location. We are anticipating some debt for that. Although between the years of 2030 and 2031, we have a large drop in debt service. I anticipate us having to, if those projects were to proceed, that before that time that we would need some additional funding for that project.
Can I break your rhythm, or do you want to do the last one? I wanted to ask you about that future debt.
Yep.
And what I was curious about is, why not just apply immediately to retire some principal? I think you're saying eventually it's going to end up there.
Correct.
But why not just
Because
pull the plug, do it now?
assuming the projects goes forward in the timeline that we anticipate, we're going to have that bump hit just before that
see.
drop.
So the
So
$30
I'm-
million bump, you'll start to bond for pieces of that.
Before that drop
You don't want
comes.
that to be-
So I'm looking to smooth that over so that we don't have an increase in mill rate specifically for that. If that does not happen in that timeline, we can reallocate those funds somewhere else.
Okay,
But
I understand.
I'm just looking
You're
at the
thinking now.
planning for
Yep.
that, yes. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yep.
Okay. And the last item is a new line for committed funds for our health department. We are looking at a wastewater funding plan overall for the town through WPCA, and the Board of Selectmen just this morning approved the first phase of a town center wastewater study.
Yeah, I'll take that. We are shortly facing a significant challenge relative to septic and groundwater in our town center, particularly on the backside of Whitfield Street with all the shopkeepers, and particularly as it relates to rising sea level, and our groundwater tables are now much higher, which is causing significant issues with the septic systems over there. They're having to pump them much more frequently, in some cases weekly, which is a considerable expense to those property owners. This is, we've allocated $91,000 for a study, a wastewater and hydrology study, for us to better understand what the longer-term ramifications are of getting not only septic waste out of there, which is usually through pump outs, but also the groundwater. How do we work with the state to make sure that we're doing stormwater runoff, stormwater management? And MJ just mentioned, we are still under a sewer abatement order from DEP, which goes back to the 1970s, which is why we still have a Water Pollution Control Authority. The end of this path could eventually wind up being some kind of common septic AT system that will satisfy the needs of the greater downtown area, particularly as it relates to our shopkeepers. And what do we now have? 5 restaurants in that little area, 4 or 5 restaurants. The challenge could potentially become one where we'd have to create a sewer taxing district to put together some kind of comprehensive plan to deal with stormwater and septic management in our downtown area. If we are not able to do that, the value of those properties will be significantly undermined over time, and what we have come to enjoy in terms of the amenities that our greater downtown area offer may be at risk and jeopardy. So this is a taxpayer initiative now to understand what the problem is. I mentioned a septic taxing district. That is a very extreme end to this project, but that project would not be funded through taxpayer dollars. That would wind up having to be funded and paid for by the affected property owners. This is private property that we're talking about, but it does have a health consideration, which is why we're willing to make the investment today to understand what our long-term options and what our long-term challenges and options are going to be. So
the study will tell you that?
Our study will be able to tell us what the current demands need and anticipated increases in groundwater level increases. So this is something that I believe we need to do in order to protect the integrity of and viability of our economic center, one of our economic centers. But
Well, it's not unlike what we had to address with the well contaminations down in some of those summer beach homes.
Right.
Same idea.
Water. It's similar, very very much similar. That they are paying the cost for the infrastructure that was put in place. Now, we will use and exhaust every opportunity we have to get state and federal funding to eventually help mitigate the cost of a project like that. But we are quite some way away from that. We are at the let's understand what our problem is.
Let's get the information.
That's a good point, but the other aspect of it is that if we don't take the steps to understand that now, and the problem, I can speak personally that when I'm in my office on Friday mornings, every Friday morning, there's a truck pumping out one of the same tank.
Yep.
Every Friday morning at 7 in the morning.
Yep.
And that's going on 52 weeks a year.
Yep.
Because of the use that the system is under. And that's just one tank out of several.
Several in that area.
That's in that area. There are others that get serviced throughout at least once a week, or at least twice a week, once every 2 weeks, sometimes more often. The problem that I see is that if we don't take the steps that you're describing in this, there are other communities along the shoreline that have had the state come down and tell them, you need to address this problem, and you need to do it within a strict timeline. And rather than, from my perspective, rather than wait for the state to come in and say, you've got a problem and you've got to fix this because it's become a public health problem.
Right.
We're getting ahead of it to identify what the problem is and come up with ways to address it.
There's also
You said it better than I could. Thank you.
There's also residents on that property
There
as
are
well.
also,
It's
yeah,
not just restaurants.
it's exacerbated by the residences that are up above. Now, this more significant contributor to the effluence problem is the success of the restaurants. There's just no question about it. Not to name names, but Prime is killing it, right? That place is packed almost every night of the week. Weekends, it's crazy. So that, the taxation on what were formally approved systems under a different kind of code are taxing the capacity to handle what they're doing, given the number of seats that they have.
Well, and importantly, under different uses. I mean, there weren't that many restaurants at the center of town not that long ago. I
That's
mean,
right.
restaurants are
You and I-
attractive for
You
a
and I
lot
are
of
old
reasons.
enough to remember the only restaurant was a coffee shop.
Well, and they consume and generate a lot of water for the services they provide, and much more than, the Guilford Traveler might have, or something like that, so.
And there's a parallel path that we are following, and I'm at liberty to discuss it, is we reached out to the Catholic Church because they have a significant amount of property abutting that area. And they have given us approval to go put some test pits in on their grassy area to the left of the Little Red Barn in their parking lot in the backside for potential use for any remedies that may wind up becoming a choice. And they are willing to work with us for a ground lease, but more importantly, they've already authorized us to do test pits and to see what kind of capacity exists over there, either for leaching or for something known as alternative treatment plants, which would be a closer, would get closer to a common system, AKA common septic or sewage system.
Have we seen a system like this in another town our size in Connecticut?
Actually, we
Common
put
septic.
a smaller one of these down at the beach, the AT systems at the beach when we changed out the septic system for the public restrooms down there. That's a modified, it's a smaller version of what they call one of these alternative treatment plants, where they don't necessarily just leach it, but they treat it in holding chambers. This science is beyond me, but nonetheless, these are the kind of options that we will be given based on what this study provides.
But have you seen an example like in a town
Yeah,
similar to our size?
I can't. I personally haven't, but Sonia Marino, our health director, has had experience in other communities with these. The question is how large and how big can you make them? They are a now viable and approved use for septic by DEP. For years they were not, because it was leading edge technology. But we can certainly find out where some of the other systems.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen an example of shared septic between some adjacent property owners.
Right.
Not really something like that in a small
Yeah.
town.
You're right.
But the other thing that's unique.
I was going to ask
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask a similar question. Didn't we have something comparable to similar to this in Shoreline Plaza?
Yes, Bob, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's been on for quite some years.
Well, actually, that's a Shoreline Plaza. It was a rock pile.
A rock pile.
It was the rock pile that was the first AT system that went in place.
But a lot of it, as you were mentioning before, is dependent on, I mean, the groundwater in that area is pretty elevated.
Yeah,
So
and
that
we will-
ties your hands in terms of what you can.
We'll also be looking at our stormwater runoff in that area. That's all non-impervious surface. That is a big expanse of non-impervious. Where does the water go? Well, we have catch basins, all right? We think we are tied into the state system that runs down Water Street that eventually provides relief in the East River on stormwater. We're going to have to do some investigation to look at whether or not some of those pipes are clogged, they're not working, and how we more efficiently tie into those if we are not tied into them in the capacity we should. So there's a bunch of angles on this thing that need to be looked at.
Which is one more reason why starting to look at it now,
Yeah.
in my opinion,
Absolutely.
makes more sense.
Absolutely, and the stormwater stuff can also be run off into the property that currently is owned by the Catholic Church. So there are a variety of solutions that we're hoping to be able to evaluate.
If this evolved into a big enough project where you might consider a tax district, would the property owners be able to have a referendum on that decision?
John, I don't know the process on that, but I do know that when we took on the debt for the Mulberry Point water thing, that was at a town meeting. That went to a town meeting for approval, and it was approved because we assumed the debt, and then the property owners are responsible for paying it off over time. I would assume there'd be a similar kind of arrangement with the affected property owners who either opted to tie into the system or were forced to tie into the system. There's a lot of permutations on this that sort of scare me because just the negotiations on this are going to be a challenge no matter what we do. But it's something, we're not putting our head in the sand. That's what I'm saying. We're actively working this problem.
Well, I think information is power, so, I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So the committing of the 350 is...
Well, 90,000 of that is going for the study.
Right, and then there's...
We don't know what else. We don't know what else is there, but...
Right, but it could address priority issues that come out of that report.
Yes.
That need to be addressed immediately.
Yeah.
Correct. And
Oh,
it's also
and-
a general wastewater
Right,
plan.
and that may not be the last study. That is a study that's focused pretty much exclusively on the Whitfield Street and west side. We've got other drainage issues around town. In the spring, you saw water, you could see water bubbling up from the gutters on the building on the corner of not High Street. Yeah, it is. No, not High Street. 77 and right on the north of the north end of the green, the building where the two real estate agencies are. You could literally see water bubbling back up from the drainage, the drainage system. We've got there are more areas that will need to be looked at eventually.
Okay. Other questions regarding the six items, besides Health Department, which I think we pretty much took care of?
If I could for a minute.
Go ahead.
We put these funds in there, but we're using them. So MJ had a couple of examples of, we use them on the facility stuff. I think she mentioned earlier that the roof for the library, all right, that was paid out of that fund. There were a couple, I don't know if you got a couple other examples that you want to talk about, but.
Yeah, and 2 meetings ago, I came to you with transfers from our committed funds into some items, but again, we did fund the roof. From that, we have funded the Energov project, which is the new system going in at Town Hall South for their permitting. We did some work at Falcon Road for coastal resilience, as well as Briarwood Road for the road projects. So we are continuing not only to put these funds aside, but to use them for the purposes that we have requested. And our rating agencies do appreciate the fact that we have these funds set aside for these specific purposes, specifically coastal resilience. That is a big one for them, and we were able to show them how we put money aside, we use them for those uses, we put more money aside for future projects. So we do very well with the rating agencies, as well as just the town in general having these funds available.
Well, I think the use of it is equally as important to the rating agencies as the setting
Absolutely.
aside the funds, because we're taking steps, we're trying to be proactive with regard to coastal resilience plans. And if we can use these funds that we have as a result of surpluses to improve our public streets, to improve our septic systems, or improve our wastewater, stormwater plants, that, in my opinion, is efficient use of the taxpayers' funds to address problems that if they're not big problems yet, they're going to become bigger problems down the road.
And not just problems. Our town planner in last year's capital improvement requests for the 5-year capital plan, put in a number of items equaling over $500,000, which was the town center south revamp, Route 1 corridor, commercial corridor master plan, the ongoing plan of conservation and development, and some work with ArcGIS. That was almost $500,000. The selectmen chose to use committed funds and to add, we did this last year, put committed funds away. She knew she was gonna have these requests, and those are items she's working on. So we know that as she is able to get these projects complete, the funding is here for her.
And I might add to Jonathan's earlier comment about giving it back to the taxpayer. Well, we are in fact giving it back to the taxpayers because these projects need to get done. And normally, these would be in our capital budget, either in an operating budget, but as you all well know, we don't budget more than $1 million for our capital operating budget. So we would have normally gone out to bond some of these projects, which would add a 20% premium on the total cost of the taxpayers over the life of retiring the bond. So these funds are in fact going back to the taxpayers in terms of avoidance for additional costs over a longer period of time.
So I'll just add that on top of not spending additional money for interest and expenses for bonding, the money is in our accounts collecting interest. So that's where you see it in my budget. So we're actually making money instead of spending money on these line items for these specific items. And again, I will just reiterate that at any time, the selectmen and the Board of Finance together can reallocate these funds, put it back in the undesignated fund balance, do whatever, by motion of these boards, we can move this money around if the need for these funds is no longer there. So just add that.
That interest is greater than the interest we're paying on our bonds?
Yes.
Give or take? Okay.
Yes. At the moment.
Right, in the current interest environment.
I'd like to make a motion that we transfer $1.7 million from the unassigned fund balance outlined to the 6 projects outlined by the finance director on the memo dated October 16th, 2024.
I would love to second that, because I didn't make it. Usually I do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Otherwise, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Abstentions? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mary Jane. Thank you, Matt. Not done.
Not done.
Not done.
Got another big item.
Transfers pending. So these are other fund transfers that, so the one thing that's missing from here is any kind of a date or a memo on it, so I guess we'll. But
it's all outlined.
It's all right here.
Right.
It's all right here, so.
So when you look at what I have on
You're-
board pack, the item in the middle is
Yeah.
what the funds will look like if you were to approve item 1 and item 3.
Right,
So there's no action on
right,
item 2.
on the fund balances, right. So the transfers pending for fiscal year ending June 30th, those are the other fund transfers that are in the third item. So we're transferring, the amount we're looking at is $561,620.35. That's going to be coming from a couple sources: committed fund balances for disaster relief, sidewalks, as well as undesignated fund balance. And they will be going into the items that you see transfer to, which would include general fund accounts receivable for, I guess you could say, COVID-related
I'd like to go through them
items.
if you don't mind, so that
Please.
everybody knows
Please do.
what I'm looking for.
Yep.
I don't mean to,
No, I'd rather have you go through,
Steal your
I'd rather have you go through them.
I think, hopefully if I go through them, it'll alleviate some of the questions.
Got it.
So during COVID, if you remember, we had significant expenditures. FEMA promised that we would receive funding back for many items that we did. In the end, we did receive thousands and thousands of dollars in reimbursement from FEMA, but there were some items that they eventually said were not covered. Specifically, we had vaccine clinics that we held in Guilford for our residents. Some of those costs were not covered. A lot of our technology, we had initially been led to believe that a lot of the technology that we purchased so that employees could work from home would be covered by FEMA. Those costs were not. Some other staffing in the fire and the police department. So when we have people out because of COVID and we had to restaff those people, we did put in for funding from FEMA. Some of those costs were indeed recouped, but not all. In the end, I have $188,286.37 left that has not been recouped by grants. I just want to reiterate that we received far more than that in reimbursement. But a couple of years ago, I came to you, just like I am tonight, asking you to set aside funds in a committed fund for disaster relief, because I said at that point, there would not be complete reimbursement for all of our COVID expenses. And I'm at the point now where I'm trying to clean up a lot of these accounts. We have worked with FEMA aggressively over the last few years. We have received every penny that we're expecting to get. So I am asking for that money to cover the receivable from those funds that you set aside for disaster relief. Under the shellfish account, same exact thing. They had expenditures, not all of it was covered by FEMA. It's just over $1,000. So that's all coming from the disaster relief funds that you have previously set aside.
Mary Jane, before
Yes.
you go on disaster relief, is this including any expenses for the Board of Education that were not covered, or is that separate?
The Board of Ed, I think, is all set, correct? This is just on the town side.
Okay.
The next item is under our grant fund. We had an affordable housing feasibility study back, I think it was 2016. It came into effect right when I started here. We dropped the ball on our end, applying for the last bit of funding under the grant. Over the past couple of years, the Board of Selectmen have asked me to go back and see what I can do. I've had conversations with two of the top people from the grant, the state of Connecticut, and the money is just no longer there for us. So in order to close that grant out, I am asking for a transfer of $29,423 from the undesignated fund balance, just to close that grant out. Those funds are not going to be coming from the state. The next item I think I talked about a couple of meetings ago. It's the closeout of the Guilford High School construction project. We received our last and final reimbursement from the state of Connecticut. There were a number of small items that they did not allow. For instance, there were a few purchase orders that were under our $20,000 threshold. We did not go out to bid. They were small amounts, but they added up. The state of Connecticut would not would not allow those.
They're tough, that state.
Yeah, I
that
know.
State grant program.
And we, we had some other items that just did not fall within their criteria. So I think I mentioned a couple months ago that we do have available bond authorization money for this $200,000. But because we are 10 years into the project, the bond authorization would now be taxable funds. So between paying for taxable dollars for bond authorization and paying the fees to go out for bonding for $200,000, it's my recommendation, in agreement with our financial advisors and our bond counsel, that we take and close out the Guilford High School project for $221,896.23 from the undesignated fund balance. The last item is the Boston Street sidewalks. Prime example of use of committed funds. We put money aside for the Boston Street sidewalks into the committed fund for sidewalks. And here we are utilizing those funds. So I'm asking for a withdrawal from the committed funds from sidewalks into the actual sidewalk fund to cover those. All of those items together come up with the $561,000. Any questions?
I actually have a question.
Yep.
The first motion that we just passed, it sort of implied that we were going to put $537,000 back into unassigned fund balance. Was that part of the motion or not? Not really. It's just the 1.7.
So we're going to take 1.7 out of the surplus that we have for June 30, 2024. Whatever is left will fall into
It's just gonna fall
undesignated.
from-
Correct.
okay, I follow you.
My estimate of
Sorry.
537,000 was to keep that
I got
that
you.
percentage.
If we leave it
Yeah.
in there, it just ends up there
So
eventually.
once the audit is complete,
Yeah.
it could be 400,000, it could be 800,000. It's good, but at the moment, the estimate is the 500.
So in some regards, this transfer, some of it coming from undesignated fund balance is already covered.
I've already taken that into account when you look at the spreadsheets. So I've
Okay.
taken into account that we're already in anticipation of you approving these two. I've already taken that funding into account when
Okay.
I've come up with the numbers on my first memo. So if you look at the second item on your board pack, you've already approved the first, the 1.7. If you were to approve these items, then you'll see that those are the balances that will be left, the estimated balances. Obviously, we are still in the middle of our audit, and anything could happen, but those are the estimated balances for each of those.
Sorry about this
That's okay.
question. I don't know if it's like splitting hairs. I'm kind of curious. There's the sidewalk fund on one side, and then the sidewalk fund on the other side. What,
Okay.
So we-
Were you- did you?
I had a little bit of, yeah, go ahead.
So we have an actual sidewalk fund.
Right.
In the same way we had the Guilford High School Project Fund. And that's the money that every year you put $50,000 into.
Right.
And we build that up and we use that for maintenance. We had a project for Boston Street and we used the sidewalk fund. And we knew that there was not going to be enough money in the sidewalk fund to cover that project. So we set money aside in committed funds before it was needed. So we set that money aside a couple of years ago, knowing that the sidewalk fund was going to need that. And now we're moving it from undesignated, from the committed fund balance into the fund that actually expenses.
Wouldn't that be a
the items.
pending expense? On the fund balance tracking, on the tracking sheet?
It's on you.
So we're proposing $50,000 to spend.
No, in
Right,
the operating budget, every year you put 50,000 in. That's already in your operating budget.
All right, so there's not a counter pending amount offsetting.
No.
No, it's just to fund that committed fund.
So we've already, the 50,000 is used for other items. It's maintenance of our
Yeah.
sidewalks.
It's upkeep on the
Correct.
sidewalk.
is that
This was
operating
a-
capital or that's a different line?
It's in our operating.
It's in your operating, so in your operating budget,
Operating capital, right?
correct,
Okay.
there's a 50,000.
Just trying to piece together.
Yes.
All right.
The 121,000 is basically Guilford's contribution to the sidewalk fund. We are anticipated, as part of these grants that we get from the state, we have a portion that we're supposed to pay, either 10 or 20% of the amount of the project, all right? So that's why we put money aside in the sidewalk fund when we got this grant a couple of years ago. We knew we were going to have to come up with a contribution towards the completion of that project. That's the sidewalk that goes from the Alderbrook Cemetery to the top of, to the end of 146 and Route 1, AKA the old water tower. And we'll probably be back again. We just asked for $50,000 earlier that you approved going into that fund. We'll probably be back next year looking for more because we just got a grant to extend the sidewalks from where they end at the 146 Route 1 intersection all the way to the East River in Madison. So we'll be most likely back looking for more matching funds unless we have enough in there to cover our contribution.
So that 50, I'm totally understanding all this, and I agree with all of it. So,
Long night.
yeah, I'm trying to make it less long, but,
Mr. Chairman.
so the fund we're talking about, the committed fund is road repairs sidewalk,
Correct.
right? So we're proposing $50,000 from unassigned fund balance to put it in that fund.
We just approved
We
that.
just approved
We
that.
just approved that.
I'm sorry, okay, we already
So
approved.
there's 250,000, that's the confusion.
And then and then, again, I'm looking at the fund balance report, that 251 is coming from unassigned for this next motion, and 189 is coming from disaster relief. So wouldn't 121 be also a pending amount coming out of sidewalk, so we're putting money in and then taking money out?
Right.
That's exactly.
Putting
We're not
50
putting
in,
it, we're
and we're
putting
taking
50 in.
121 out.
So, okay, so let me,
And my
okay, I'm still,
computer just died, so.
so again, it's the pending 121. Would be
Correct.
coming out of sidewalk.
Correct.
So, again, 121 out, 50 in would be
Right.
an amount unless that 505 ending balance is including the amount, but it wouldn't because it's pending. I'm just saying it's not I'm not seeing it here as coming out
The
on the,
121 should be coming out.
is it just me?
Is it not there?
I don't.
No, it is.
No, I'm looking at the fund balance report that's in between that we're making
Right.
no. I'm seeing pending 251 coming out of unassigned, I'm seeing 189 coming out of disaster relief, but I don't see any 121 coming out, which it should. Whereas the proposed, we're putting in,
Oh, on the second sheet.
The problem is the fund balance report does not contemplate the action you are now contemplating. That was designed to show what was going into, what you have already approved was going into the fund balance report. She did not put in the anticipated reductions.
Well, he's saying it nicely. If it's not there, I missed it. It should
Okay.
be there, yes.
I'm all in favor of this, by
Yes,
the way.
it should be there.
I'm just looking at
It
the
should be
report
there.
and looking at the correlating amounts and like, okay,
Right.
we're showing pending amounts
Yes.
coming out, which I get, but it doesn't add up, and it's short 121.
It should be there.
The 120, and again, if it's just a mistake on this,
I'm the first to
fine.
say, if I make a mistake.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear on, okay.
Again, my computer just lost its battery,
It's
so I can't
fine.
even look at it.
It's-
If it's not there, it should be,
Okay,
yes,
and it'll be updated as such.
yes.
In the meantime,
That's what's gonna really happen if you.
yeah, okay. So,
Yes.
so does anybody else have any other questions regarding, Mary Jane, by the way, thank you for explaining all that. Makes a lot more sense on why we're, you know, well, Guilford High School Construction Closed Fund, I remember talking about it, but, you know, the fact that we could just get rid of it and pay it and not have to worry about tax, you know, getting taxed on it and paying it off, it's fine. Everything else seems appropriate use, so, anybody else have anything? Otherwise, I'll give it a shot of entertaining a motion to transfer $561,620.35 from the committed fund balances and undesignated fund balance to the funds outlined by the finance director and approved by the Board of Selectmen on October 21st, 2024.
Can I ask one more question, Mr. Chairman?
Wait, hold on.
Short one?
No,
I don't finish the
Just need a
motion.
second.
I got a motion on the table. Entertain a motion. Do I hear a motion?
Yes.
A motion? Second? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Jonathan, discussion.
Just quick, do we have a vaccine clinic?
We did during COVID. We had vaccine clinics where the residents could go to the firehouse
Oh, okay.
and
Seniors
receive
did it.
their
Oh, I
vaccines.
thought you had to go to the pharmacy, okay.
No,
I didn't know that.
we had them here as well. They were put on by our health department in cooperation with public safety.
Okay,
Yep. So
sorry,
that's,
short question.
so some of the costs associated with that were covered, some of them weren't.
All right.
Great.
Call the question?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The hands were going up at different times, so, okay, we're good. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Night.
Thank you. Committee reports, item number 7, building permits, anything on building permits? I did not think so. Item number 8, old business, anything under old business? Anything under new business, item 9? Anything under item 10, public forum, anybody wishing to address the board in public forum? Okay. We have a final item on the agenda. It's item number 11. Discuss and take possible action on the Registrar of Voters stipends related to the impacts from early voting implementation. It does note that executive session may be required because we are talking about stipends and about compensation. I would entertain going into executive session. And with that, I do need to make some invitations. Of course, the entire Board of Finance. Tracy, our secretary, our first selectman, our finance director. Don't shake your head. Our 2 registrar of voters are here this evening. Linda, I'm sorry, I will not invite you to this. Are you okay with that? All right. Okay. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
We will be coming back. There's a very good possibility we will be taking some sort of action, so.
Recording stopped.
Actually, would Tracy be, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Oh, we got it. Okay.
All right.
We are
Recording in
back.
progress.
We are now officially back on both, so. Okay, Jeff, did you want to?
I'll move we come out of executive session.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Regarding the discussion, we are going to take one action, and what I'd like to do based on this item is entertain a motion to form a subcommittee of the Board of Finance in discussion of Registrar of Voters compensation.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Actually, during discussion, probably should have asked to, okay, well, we'll do that now. Subcommittee, I would have no problem serving on that subcommittee. I think there should be 3 serving on this committee. Anybody else wishing to join me?
I'll join you.
Jonathan? Veronica? Anybody on virtually? Anybody online on virtual? Good?
You got 3?
We got 3.
Wait.
Okay, Veronica? Yes.
My husband is an election worker. Does that preclude me? He's a poll worker.
No, I don't No, because we're talking specifically about Registrar of
Okay,
Voters.
so
You're not setting his salary, just.
Yeah.
Right, right, exactly.
just want to make sure we're.
No, good question. But okay, so that is the subcommittee, and I will reach out. We're going to receive some information from the Registrar of Voters. So once we get that, then we can start talking as a subcommittee. Thank you. Thank you, Michael and Tracy, for your patience during executive session. With that, I do not believe there's anything else on the agenda, so.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Oh, that was quick. Thank you, everyone, it was a long meeting tonight,
I
but
think we should have
very
discussion.
fruitful. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, thank you.